Hello, welcome to this course in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience. My name is Cedar Riener, and I'm the current chair of the department. I'd like to introduce you to this course and to our field and to our department here in the fall of 2020 and for the brave new world of beyond. First, each course in the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience will have different goals and objectives. But there is one overarching goal that I think is common to every course in our field. We want to teach you how to see the world like a psychological scientist. Sometimes the revelation that these lenses filters and mirrors provide will be obvious. Sometimes it won't be so obvious. Can you tell I study visual perception? I can't resist the opportunity to use seeing as a metaphor, but I think my colleagues would agree that that is one overarching goal of all our courses, to get you to have tools to see the world a little bit differently and to see yourselves and your own minds and thoughts and brains a little bit differently. Second, whoa, is this semester different or what? We're all seeing the world a little bit differently now with our experiences this spring and summer. We're seeing classrooms and bedrooms and living rooms differently. As you can see, I've got my nice room set up here, but also I've got all my photo equipment and lighting and tripods and stuff. You can see there's the camera, there's my backyard. We're seeing both more of us and less of each other. Um, so it's affecting the spaces we see and the literal space between us as we've been thinking about keeping 6 feet apart. Speaking of the space between us, this pandemic and our efforts to control it put space between us, sometimes the literal space we need to stay apart from each other to keep healthy and stop the spread of the pandemic. And sometimes it's imposing virtual space between us, like the miles away you are from me right now as I speak into this camera. And it's also a psychological distance in our classrooms, right? So whether our classrooms are virtual or whether we're all masked up and in the physical classroom, this pandemic and this semester is going to be different in that there's going to be more space between us. But as you'll discover this semester, in addition to this literal physical space between us, there's also psychological distance that these pandemic measures are imposing between us. So there's layers of psychological distance between us in the classroom or even online. So when you can't see my mouth, it becomes a lot harder to tell when I'm smiling or making a joke. I'm starting to get good with using my eyebrows and smiling with my eyes, but it's just not the same. We human beings are used to recognizing faces and emotions using the whole face, not just the eyes. When I can't see your body language, I can't tell if you're bored or interested. And can't make eye contact, it's much harder for me to show you that I care about how you feel, that I care that you're bored or that you're interested. That kind of dynamic social interaction really happens with eye contact, and it's very unnatural as I'm staring at this little black dot in the corner of my camera. You know, this psychological distance, sometimes it's good and important, I'll be honest, right? It's good to have privacy and boundaries. It's weird that I'm kind of inviting you into my living room, right? It's weird to have Zoom class in your bedroom. Uh, that's a classroom. We all want the classroom. We all miss the classroom. I do too. It's also uh, kind of weird that no student in the past has ever been this close to me, right? You don't get to usually see, even the ones in the front row, don't usually get to see the rings under my eyes that say how much sleep I've been getting, um, or just such a focus on my weird looking hairline, which my teenage sons keep teasing me about. Um, so it's kind of weird, right? This is not optimal education for any of us. So privacy and boundaries are good, but that psychological distance comes at a cost, right? It comes at a cost of disengagement and drawing those boundaries between us that can limit our connection. So here's what I'll say to close that section about psychological distance, and a little reminder for all of us. For every course in this department, every faculty member in the psychology and neuroscience department, um, why we got into teaching, what we enjoy about teaching, what we love about teaching at Randolph-Macon is we're not here to transmit information through our screens into your heads, right? We're not just here to broadcast ourselves out into the ether. We want to connect. We want to engage with human minds. We want to help build knowledge with you. We just don't want to transmit information. And to build knowledge with you, we need to have some sort of engagement with you as human beings, as human minds, right? Not just as a set of screens, not just as names. What we're going to try to do, what we've thought about this summer, what we've been training on, what we've been trying to do is do better at connecting with you. We've got some skills and strategies. Some of us have some games. Some of us have different techniques. Hopefully we're all better at Zoom than we were this spring. I know that I am. Um, and we'll invite you to do what you can, invite you to engage as best you can in your classes. It'll make a better experience for all of us. So this might mean different things in different classes. It might mean making an effort to have your camera on during a Zoom synchronous session. It might mean that you don't feel comfortable with having your camera on and instead typing more in the chat, being present in the chat window. It might mean unmuting yourself and saying, "Oh yeah," or asking a question, asking more questions than you might normally. I know in college I was normally a back row kid, a back row person, and I think this, as we're all in the same like matrix of Zoom windows, right? It calls for kind of a different approach. Don't think of yourself in the back row. And think of trying to be more active and more engaged in your synchronous sessions at least, and asynchronously trying to be engaged in the discussion boards when those are part of your class. So I think these efforts of yours and ours to reduce the psychological distance between us will help you learn more. It'll help us make a better educational experience for us all, even as a lot of the learning this semester will be mediated through screens, through microphones, through cameras, and through text, through typing, through email, through Canvas. We'll have to kind of push through some of those layers of distance between us to make this a better experience for us all. Third, and finally, while the pandemic has revealed drastic inequality in our society, and the inequality itself has exacerbated the spread of the pandemic in the United States, the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Marcus David Peters, and many others, as well as the nationwide protests this spring and summer, have led to a national moment of racial reckoning for our country. As psychologists and neuroscientists, and as social scientists, we know that while this brutal racist violence may have provided the spark for this moment of reckoning, prejudice and discrimination are not limited to those racist bones which never seem to exist in anyone's bodies, but like a centuries-long pandemic, have spread throughout our society, our institutions, and our very minds. This includes the minds of your professors, of me, right? Of your faculty in the Psychology and Neuroscience department, the pedagogy we employ, the curriculum we teach. Undoing racism will not be like a simple vaccine, but a long journey of reducing harm and improving wellness. We in the Psychology and Neuroscience department have committed ourselves to taking positive steps on this journey. What does this mean for you? Whether it's taking a psychology course, becoming a psychology major, or joining our glorious profession, you will be invited in different ways to engage in this journey yourself. Some of these steps you will see soon this fall and spring in the form of content on racial disparities in psychology. So for example, racial disparities can have an impact on our health. You'll notice that in health psychology. We can see how we study and measure unconscious bias in social psychology, or how we recognize faces in cognition and perception, or even how racism has shaped our development as a field, which you'll notice in your senior capstone class on the history of psychology. Some of our steps you may not notice directly. As our faculty engage in faculty development and our own training and education, training outside the classroom, exploring our own unconscious biases and the ways in which they affect our teaching and our courses. As you experience this engagement with these topics, I ask you to remember that these efforts are undertaken with great care towards your education and your preparation for all of our students. We want to send you out into the world prepared, right? Well prepared for what you want to do. We want to give you the tools to succeed. Whether it's to teach elementary school, treat drug addiction, practice law, study brain cells, or protect our communities, you will come across racism around you, and you may even become more aware of your own prejudice. I know I have. I've certainly found that to be the case in my own journey.
I'm butting in here as I'm watching this video and editing it on my computer. As I'm watching my section on racism, I'm noticing that I've kind of been talking to my younger self, who is a white cisgender man, and also kind of assuming that white students are going to be uncomfortable with talking about racism and learning about racism, whereas BIPOC and Black students and students of color are probably more familiar with these issues than I've been putting in this video. I'm leaving that up there to let you know that this is not easy for me. I'm going to make mistakes. Many of your faculty are also going to make mistakes, but we feel it's important to trudge through this and struggle with our own biases, as you're seeing an example in this very video of mine. I think of it kind of as an example of when we have the glasses that we've been accustomed to our whole lives. Sometimes we can see the world a little bit differently, but it's not always easy to remove them entirely.
The mission of the college is to develop your mind and character. We take that seriously. We would not be following this mission if we did not prepare you to see racism and address racism where it limits the development of your mind and harms the growth of your character. With racism, as with the pandemic, we know that addressing this issue will be uncomfortable. Sometimes the discomfort is physical discomfort and not being able to hug our parents or having to wear a mask everywhere. With racism, though, sometimes the discomfort is a moral, spiritual, psychological discomfort. And just like masks, just like physical distancing, this discomfort can be important for our growth and development. As journalist and anti-lynching activist Ida B. Wells Barnett said, the only way to right wrongs is to shine the light of truth upon them. So I'll close on a note of gratitude. Thank you for your time and attention in this video, sticking through with my efforts to edit and to make my point come across in an engaging way. And thanks for your time and attention and engagement in your psychology class this semester. I hope it's worth it for you, both this semester, for we all have limited time in this pandemic, and I hope it's worth it for you in your future. We think a lot about those issues, and I've been thinking a lot about the stretching and shrinking of the future during these times. But I'd say that the psychology department, psychology and neuroscience department faculty have a long view of your career and your future, and we hope to honor the time that you've given us at Randolph-Macon and make it worth your while. So thank you. I hope to run across many of you in my classes. If not, you're welcome to reach out with any questions. My email is easily accessible on the RMC website. And again, this is Cedar Riener, Chair of the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience, welcoming you to our department and our courses, and thank you.